Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today to talk about VCU's experience with ExamSoft and specifically our student perspectives on the use of ExamSoft in their P3 year of the PharmD curriculum. And I've titled the program, today's program, The Good, the Bad, and the Awesome. And you may be thinking that part of it's going to be bad, but it's not all bad. It's very, very good. And I'll tell you how we use student feedback to improve our implementation of ExamSoft. So upon completion of today's webinar, I hope that you'll be able to use student and faculty feedback to identify process, technical, and administrative issues related to the successful implementation of ExamSoft, and particularly those of you who have satellite campuses. We have satellite campuses here at VCU, so it's been very helpful for us. Just a little bit about VCU. We have over 640 students enrolled in our professional, master's, and doctoral degree programs. We admit 140 students each year, and we have 2 satellite campuses at the Inova Health System in Fairfax, Virginia, and the UVA Health System in Charlottesville, Virginia. We have 75 full-time faculty and over 1,000 affiliate faculty across the Commonwealth. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a historical perspective about how we arrived at computer-based testing or web-based testing. Back in the early 2000s, we piloted a browser-based solution with Blackboard, and it was well received by faculty. There were several faculty who were interested in using the product. We moved away from it in the mid-2000s due to bandwidth issues with the browser-based solution. The other reason is faculty wanted an effective and efficient method or solution to administer exams across our satellite campuses. What we had done in the past is we'd have to Federal Express exams from our UVA campus and our Inova campus back to the MCV campus, and that could sometimes take anywhere from 3 to 5 days. There were also some academic and professional misconduct issues reported by faculty and students in the AACP, which is the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy Faculty Survey and Student Survey, that we were hoping that ExamSoft would be able to help us address. We also wanted to look at accreditation. Given the requirements of our ACPE accreditation, we wanted to see how information we were going to be collecting in ExamSoft would help us with assessment and also the reporting of student learning outcomes. And most importantly, well, it depends. For me, it's very, very important. We needed a solution that did not require the students to be connected to the internet during testing, because with 140 students connected at one time, sometimes there could be some bandwidth issues. So I'm going to talk about the good, what we thought was the good. At the VCU School of Pharmacy, we all believe in performing with excellence. So we took a lot of time to vet, to research and vet products. There were several products that we have explored, and we finally landed on ExamSoft probably about 18 months prior to implementing the product. We obtained faculty buy-in. We did not just purchase the product and say you're going to use it. We took it before a faculty meeting. We had a vote. We had several faculty demos, demoing the product so that faculty could see how they worked and also how they could benefit them and how the products could also benefit the school. We went through the procurement process because there are several computer-based, web-based testing solutions out there. We had to go through the whole process of obtaining a sole source justification. We also did a pretty decent job with faculty training over the summer. We offered 3 different sessions, probably about 3 times each over that summer. So we had a lot of faculty development as it related to ExamSoft. Now, here is where it gets a little tricky, the student orientation. So everything had gone very, very well up until the student orientation. We planned to hold a 50-minute orientation session the first day of school. We did, and that's great. We also provided students with extensive handouts. and links to the ExamSoft website about the different how-tos, how to install, how to use the portal, what happens if. And in part of the student orientation, we also focused on why the change and why now. I'm not certain that you caught what I said earlier, but we began using ExamSoft in the 3rd year of our 4-year PharmD curriculum. So that was a change to some of the students. As it relates to communications, we did send the students an orientation letter 2 weeks before the semester began. Could we have done that a little differently? Yes, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Also included with that orientation letter, and the orientation letter was sent via email, we included a quick reference guide, an ExamSoft student frequently asked questions guide, and we also made a mock exam available. So what did the orientation letter look like? We did email it 2 weeks before the start of the semester. We talked about why we were using ExamSoft, so we felt that we needed to justify the use to the students. We linked them to the VCU ExamSoft portal so that they can go in with their username and password and reset their password. We also included links to ExamSoft demo videos so that they could see how the product is supposed to work. We also included links to technical support. This included the VCU School of Pharmacy technical support, and it also included links to ExamSoft technical support. So we thought we had done a pretty decent job. As it relates to the ExamSoft Quick Reference Guide and Frequently Asked Questions Guide, we covered things like soft test installation. We do have a laptop requirement at the school, and we've had that since the early 2000s, but over the last 7 years, we've not enforced the standard. So students these days have come in with whatever sort of laptop they wanted to buy with whatever operating system. So we have a variety of flavors. We have Windows users, we have Mac users, we also have some students who use iPads. And so we wanted to make it very clear to the students about how they are to install soft test using their specific platform. We also wanted to provide information on using soft test to take exams, what it's going to be like once they were in the soft test environment, how you navigate between questions, also how you track your progress in soft test. We also found it very helpful to include information about antivirus, firewall, and other soft test technical issues. So we provided some links and resources there. Other ExamSoft resources that we found very helpful to share with students is, tips for exam takers, what to do before an exam. We also linked them to the ExamSoft knowledge base and provided information about technical support. The ExamSoft training guide specifically included information about what to do before the exam. ExamSoft provides a great resource for students and faculty about what to do before the exam, what to do during the exam, what to do after the exam. And so we felt that it was very important to make sure that students had this information. Specifically about before the exam and downloading and installing the VCU SafeNet client, which is our wireless client. After our first ExamSoft session, we noticed that many students had trouble uploading their files. Well, it became apparent to us that we may have needed to educate students about being connected to VCU SafeNet versus being connected to VCU Guest, which is a lower level wireless access available to guests of Virginia Commonwealth University. And during the exam, we wanted them to know, make sure you have your password, make sure you disable your antivirus software before loading soft test. After the exam, it was shared with me by our ExamSoft rep that we might want to provide some tips to exam takers about what to do in the event that your splash screen changes or your background changes. So we provided that information to students as well. One of the last things we did is we designed a mock exam to familiarize students with soft test and ExamSoft. We also wanted to expose them to the variety of item formats used in our assessments, including multiple choice assessments, short answer, essay, and matching. We also included graphic images as well as attachments to rich text files, graphic images such as GIFs and JPEGs. And we included the attachments with the exam, the overall exam, and we also included them with items within the exam. And we made this available to the students for the entire academic year. So a question you might have is how many students took advantage of completing the mock test. The first year, maybe about 80 of the 140 students took advantage of using the mock exam. And so in just a second, I'll talk more about how some of that was changed. So we thought that we had it all figured out and everything was perfect, everything was planned to be implemented without any snafus. We get into the fall semester, we have our first ExamSoft session. I give the students a survey about their experience with ExamSoft, and the first time ever in the School of Pharmacy's history, I receive a response rate of probably about 95% on this survey. And so of the 140 students, maybe 126 students responded. And so with this, I thought, oh my gosh, I hope they're saying, you know, lots of positive things about their experience with soft test. Well, I want to tell you this. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. So there has to be some sort of challenge when there's change involved. And so some of the change that I really and truly did not think about was the anxiety associated with implementing ExamSoft in the students' third year of their four-year PharmD curriculum. The other piece that I hadn't thought about, because we had received faculty buy-in, but we didn't mandate the use of ExamSoft, is, you know, whether or not faculty were going to have anxiety with using this product. So from the faculty perspective, some faculty were concerned about whether or not the product was going to fail. And the time that it was going to take to get questions imported into ExamSoft. We did not worry about tagging items at that point because we just wanted to see if, in fact, the product was going to work. Now, as it relates to student anxiety issues, students were so very afraid that they were going to have a hiccup with their computer. And some students really and truly did, because, of course, we did have a bring your own device, whatever flavor you have. You bring it in, we use it, it should all work well. And so we're going to be changing that. We're going to try and standardize a little bit. Some students were running Office Home and lots of different things. Some of the students were not familiar with the ExamSoft features and functions, even though we had sent lots of communication, the training guide, the frequently asked questions guide. We had made the mock exam available, unlimited times for the entire year. Some students were still not very comfortable with how the system worked. The other source of anxiety for the students related to, why are you changing the way I'm being assessed? I'm getting ready to go out on my advanced pharmacy practice experience rotations. I'm going to be graduating, and now you want to change the way that I've been, I've taken tests for, 20-some years of my life. Some of the other frustration or anxiety on the part of the students related to the inconsistency or the consistency in use by faculty as it relates to the format of the exams, and some faculty would allow you to use your own calculator versus the ExamSoft calculator. And so I'm going to talk about these a little bit in just a second. The other source of anxiety on the part of students is this statement that we included in our syllabi that said students are strongly encouraged to familiarize themselves with soft test before the exam starts. that you're responsible for making sure that all of your technology works, and we did modify this over the last year. But students sort of read this and thought that there's not going to be any support for me. I'm going to be penalized if I don't come to class with my laptop in tip-top shape and I'm unable to complete the exam. The other issue or source of anxiety for students related to the ExamSoft notes page. It's not so much the notes page that we use, but with each exam, we wanted the students to complete this notes page, which has the VCU Honor Systems Pledge, their name, their EID, the course, and the date. And we said here, please complete this form and turn it into an exam proctor before you leave the room. If the form is not turned in before leaving the room, you will receive a 0 for this assessment. So that language was a little strong, and students thought, oh my gosh, you know, what if I make a mistake and leave without turning this piece of paper in? So one of the things I did is, instead of making it a traditional white piece of paper, I randomized the color of paper. You know, I used pastel colors, neon colors for each and every exam, so that students, you know, were mindful that they had a notes page and needed to turn it in when they closed their exam. So while we may think that these issues are really, really small, and to me they did seem very, very small, but I didn't take into consideration how the language and how these things would be perceived by the students. So that's the bad part of the ExamSoft implementation. Now I'm going to get to the awesome part. In the middle of the year in 2013, we held a focus group session with probably about 15 students. In that focus group session, and the students all selected who would be attending this focus group session. So out of this focus group session, we learned a few things from the students. When we first rolled out the ExamSoft product at the beginning of the fall 2013 year, we had a loaner laptop program. We had 4 loaner laptops available, so that in the event the student had a technical difficulty, they could go to our technology office and reserve a laptop. Well, that ended up being problematic because it seemed to be that the same 4 students were reserving the laptop for each and every exam. So those students who had a legitimate technical issue were unable to get a laptop in the event that they had a failure prior to an exam. So we decided that it would be best to just eliminate the loaner laptop program, and we did offer some strong language about the use of the loaner laptop program. To help with the issue of consistency among faculty, we developed an ExamSoft faculty planning guide that laid out for faculty each step of the ExamSoft process with the time associated with it. So for example, if they were not going to import their own exams questions, and many of them don't, we needed to let them know that we need the exam 7 days prior. This is what's going to be done, and this is the format that we need it in. This is how we're going to run an ExamSoft session, and it seemed to work quite well. We also made the decision to use ExamSoft in all of our clinical therapeutics modules, which integrated the content of pharmacology, medicinal chemistry, pharmacotherapy, and pharmaceutics, because all of those courses were ideal for an ExamSoft session. We felt that it was also necessary to reinforce some of the communication regarding the ExamSoft how-tos. If my screen changes when I'm finished with an ExamSoft exam, this is how I correct that. And we also decided that it might be helpful if we provided some faculty support related to item building and exam creation, which has proven to be very helpful. The other piece of feedback that we got from students is the exam review process. Some faculty members wanted to make only those questions, show only the answers to the questions, the answers that the students got in correct. So after talking to the student says, I may have guessed on a particular answer and guessed the correct answer, but that still doesn't help me with learning about what I did correct and what I did wrong. So we'd like more detailed reporting with the exam reports. So since we started using ExamSoft in the fall of 2013, you can see that we've had 68 assessments. We've had 7,377 uploads, and that includes each of the exams that have been completed by students. And the number of paper copies that we've had to issue since the fall of 2013 is only 25. And not all of those 25 are related to technical issues. Maybe 3 of them could have been, oh, I left my laptop at home, I forgot, or I left my iPad. So we've had less than a 1% failure rate. I hate to say the word failure, but we've had pretty good success with using ExamSoft in our curriculum. And I think this provides evidence to our faculty that this product works. It's very reliable, and it also provides evidence to students that it works. One of the things we did, in addition to the focus group session and the first survey after the first ExamSoft session in the fall of 2013 semester, we decided to survey students at the end of the spring 2014 year and the end of the spring 2015 year. So on all 3 of the surveys, the first survey which was implemented after the first exam session in the fall of 2013, we wanted to know if students were satisfied with the performance of soft test. So you can see that the number of students has been increasing since the fall 2013 semester. And we're happy about that. So this past spring, we ended the survey about 2 weeks ago. 91% of the students who were surveyed said that they are very satisfied. We also wanted to know the number of students who reported technical difficulty with their laptops after using soft tests. In the spring 2014 semester, 52% of the students reported difficulty. When we asked them what types of difficulty you experienced, it was things like my background changed. Some of my icons were changed. And so that led us to providing more information to the ExamSoft knowledge base about how to fix these things when you have an occurrence like this after using soft test. And you can see now that with the spring semester, only 18% of students responded that they've had an issue. And those issues are the same as they were the previous year. It's all, you know, my backgrounds changed, my icons changed, and things of that nature. One of the things we wanted to know was whether or not the exam reports helped identify gaps in the students' learning. 72% in spring 2014 said, yeah, it did help identify, and 76% in spring of 2015. We're hoping next year that we'll see an increase in this number because we're planning to expand the use of the ExamSoft reports by using categories and tags. I became more comfortable with using soft test over the year. So for the spring of 2014, we did the focus group session in December of 2013, and the survey, which was implemented in May of 2014. And so the students haven't been surveyed again until last week. And so you can see that 97% in 2014 said they became more comfortable, and this year 95. I don't think that difference is statistically significant, but we're hoping that at some point we'll see that number closer to 100%. Overall, my experience with soft test has been positive. You can see that in the spring of 2014, 70% of the students said that, yeah, my experience has been positive. I didn't experience any issues. And in the spring of 2015, 93% of the students said overall their experience has been positive. So what are the changes that we made from the focus group session in December until this fall 2014 semester. The only thing we did differently is we provided communication early. So when the rising P3 students left school last spring, we sent them a communication, an email communication saying, you're going to need to use ExamSoft in the fall. Here's some links that you can go out to see how the product works. Make sure your laptop is up to date and meets these minimum specifications. We also sent the letter a little earlier this time. Instead of sending it 2 weeks early, we sent it at the beginning of August, so that was more like 3 to 4 weeks. The other major change was the student orientation. In 2013, we had a 50-minute session that was not associated with a class. But this year, we decided to integrate it into a Foundations Lab course. So what we did is we created a Blackboard quiz about the features and functionality of ExamSoft. And students were assessed using that quiz. And it was, how do I highlight? You know, how do I strike through? Different questions related to using soft test. We integrated that into the Foundations Lab, and so when they came into the Foundations Lab session, they had a practice activity using ExamSoft right there in lab. And it counted for just a small percentage of the grade. And every student completed it. There were no issues with, I'm not familiar how to do this, I didn't know that you could do this. So everyone got the training this time around. The final thing that we did was we made it a requirement for all of the clinical therapeutics module courses. So at the clinical therapeutics module course coordinator meeting last summer, it was agreed upon by all of the course coordinators that ExamSoft was a reasonable solution to administer exams in our P3 year. And so for all of our P3 clinical therapeutics module courses, we use ExamSoft. The reason, I will tell you the reason that we use ExamSoft only in our P3 year is because we don't have the space to accommodate ExamSoft in our P1 and P2 year, given that we have satellite campuses. And so we're hoping to move to an exam block in the fall semester so that we can then begin using ExamSoft in more than just the 3 year. So some suggestions from the students that came from the spring 2014 survey is please consult the students and class president prior to implementing this. ExamSoft should be implemented early in the curriculum in pharmacy year 1 rather than pharmacy year 3. And we believe that, we buy it, and we're working on that. We like the feedback and the scores faster from all course coordinators. So with an ExamSoft exam, after reviewing the item analysis and exam summary report, it's possible that the course coordinator could have the exam out within an hour in many instances. I've seen that happen this year. Some students said to minimize technical issues, consider standardizing computers for students. Again, and this happens to be because we have students who have laptops that are 6 years old, which is not optimal for an ExamSoft exam, but they've been holding on. The other piece of feedback we got from students is we would like to take notes on individual questions. So I'm not certain if we influenced this, but I was so thankful when ExamSoft included the exam taker notes and feedback section in soft test, so that with each question, students are able to provide their feedback or comments about why they chose a specific answer. From the 2015 survey that closed out last week, some of the students said sending out email messages when exams are available for downloading. And of course, that's up to individual course coordinators, and so that's something that we could make a recommendation to address in the course coordinator process guide. Designate a place to address technical difficulties during an exam, and this goes back to some of those older laptops or a student who has issues with antivirus conflicting with soft tests. Typically, I'm tipping around the classroom to address these issues, and the students have said that can be distracting. And so maybe you need to find a place in the very back of the classroom where a student can go to get support. A student said, or a few students said, the exams made available over the weekend are inconvenient for commuters. Sometimes we liked, if an exam is on a Monday, sometimes we may not make that exam available until maybe a Saturday afternoon, just to minimize the opportunity for the file to be out there, to minimize any tampering with the files. Some students said that they'd like the ability to highlight anywhere on the exam. I think at this point you can only strike through options, but you can't highlight options. And, Carter, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that. And then with the cases, we have a lot of case-based questions. And so students said it would be helpful if they could have the cases on paper, but we're trying to be environmentally conscious, and so we include the case as an attachment to the item. So it pops up when the students get to that item in ExamSoft, and in some instances we include, if it's a small case, we include that as part of the stem, just above the stem. So here's some of the feedback that we got, the open-ended feedback. Some students said, I love it. I wish I could have started using this my first year. I like that there's a clock that tells me how long it took to complete the exam and how long you have left. I prefer to have cases printed on paper rather than as a pop-up with each question. I like being able to select questions that I can return to before closing my exam. And I think that feature is very helpful to students, where they're able to check the box next to the item that they want to circle back to make sure that their logic about answering that was correct. Some students reported that they like being able to write comments for each question, and with each exam we have at least 10 to 15 students who use the exam taker notes and feedback section of soft tests. Students really, really like getting grades back early. So some students want us to release them right then and there at the end of the exam, but our policy is to withhold releasing exam results until after the faculty member has reviewed the item analysis. One student said, I don't have any problems with soft tests. It's better than writing on paper or filling in a bubble sheet. And I just thought that that was really great to hear. This one I love. A student says, it was awesome. We should be using ExamSoft for all 3 years. And this really warmed my heart. And it lets me know that the planning, the vetting of the different products, it was not in vain, that the work we've done is all going to benefit our students, it's going to benefit our faculty, and it's also going to benefit administration as we look at providing evidence as it relates to students meeting our objectives for graduation, the student learning outcomes. From the faculty perspective, faculty said, I like the instant feedback and ease in grading. They least liked the uploading the questions into ExamSoft, and their recommendation for improvement was a dedicated support with importing and formatting exams. This is challenging for our faculty because many of our faculty have teaching responsibilities, research responsibilities, service, and also in some instances clinical. So some might say, well, it's the same as if they were going to be using a paper-based exam, but it can be a little more detailed to get some of those items in ExamSoft and format it appropriately. So we will be hiring a person within the next month who will be here to help with that in the fall, as well as some other assessment duties and responsibilities. So I would say some of the key elements of student engagement is regular communication is essential. That's with the faculty as well as the students. So when we have the opportunity, whether it's at the end of the semester, focus group session, or after an exam or through a survey, we do want to find out what students think about the product. And when appropriate, where appropriate, we may respond. And that also links to listening to student concerns. So I mentioned that we have student focus group sessions, and students will volunteer the information about ExamSoft. They're not shy in expressing their thoughts and opinions about the product. Low stakes quiz about ExamSoft. That's where we integrated ExamSoft into the Foundations Lab. I found that very effective in making sure that every student in class completed an ExamSoft session before the first real test. Otherwise, you'll have people who will not go in, familiarize themselves, and then on the day of the exam, they're trying to figure out their username or they're trying to download software. So you have to provide standards and guidelines to hold the students accountable. We also have our mock exam available for ongoing practice. So I create a mock exam at the beginning of the year, and that exam stays open until the end of the year. So the exam that I created as of August 1st, 2014, it will actually close next week on May 17th after the students are done for the year. It's also important to have a technical support plan. While the students in 2014 did not report that they used technical support that heavily, I think it was probably maybe 17 students said that they used technical support. Yeah. There was a small number of students who used technical support, but it is important that they know how to reach ExamSoft if you have technical staff in your school who are providing support with ExamSoft so that they can provide assistance when needed. So some of the lessons we learn is that a quality assurance system or process is essential to a successful implementation. It's also a good idea to develop an exam policy that's consistent for all courses. So in the exam policy, you could have some language about whether or not you're going to require the students to use the ExamSoft calculator, what devices they need to have on them or with them, or whether you want them kept in their locker. I also believe that it's very important to set the expectations for students and hold them accountable early on. And just be consistent with that. Because if you do one thing for one student, you have to be fair and do that for another. So just set the expectations high and communicate them early on and hold students accountable. And where I'm headed with that is the requirements for laptops. If you're going to have a loaner laptop program, you're going to have some meat in it that, either the students need to provide you information about where their laptop is being serviced or something. Because if you don't, you'll have people who will take advantage of the resources that you have in place because they prefer not to install soft test on their own computers. Consistency in our particular school may not be true for all schools and all programs, but because we have a PharmD program where students are admitted at the same time and they go through every single course together for all 4 years of their, or at least 3 years of their curriculum, we feel that consistency across courses is very important. Open communication is helpful for those campuses that are geographically dispersed. We do have satellite campuses, again, at UVA Health System in Charlottesville and Inova Fairfax. And so when we're communicating information about the exam, we make sure that the course coordinators for those courses at those locations are communicated, are included on that communications as well, so that on exam day, no one's left out of the communications loop and everyone's singing from the same hymn book. Another big thing that we found helpful is always important to release the grades after reviewing your item analysis. I can't stress this enough, but only after you review the item analysis is should you release the exam reports. And then the other thing that we've learned is assessment by categorization right now at this point is very useful information. I think it's very, very useful for students because it will help them identify gaps in their learning. I think it's also useful for faculty because it will help faculty know what the gaps are in students' learning, and it will also help them, could also help them identify if the course objectives are being met, or if a particular instructor who's a guest instructor in their course, if their objectives are being met. But it's particularly beneficial for administration related to accreditation. So what's next for us? We're going to look at a way in which we can provide our students with the Strengths and Opportunities report next year so that they can have information about what they're doing well, where they need to improve, and we feel that this will be very beneficial to them as they're moving through the curriculum in preparation for their board exam after graduation, which is their NAPLEX exam. We're going to try and expand some faculty development and training because at this point, you know, we have people to import the questions for faculty, and there are some faculty who import their own, but where we're going to need faculty help is categorizing and tagging their questions so that we can get effective strengths and opportunities report and also other reporting for accreditation and key performance indicator markers. We're going to try and transition to exam blocks in the fall semester and expand ExamSoft into the P1 and P2 years. We may, this coming year, do P3 and P1, and we're hoping to be able to finalize that decision within the next couple of weeks. We're going to consider delayed exam review. This was an upgrade made to ExamSoft, I think, mid-year. I am going to experience how we can use that because at this point we provide students with paper copies of their exams for exam reviews, but it would be so environmentally conscious if we are able to provide delayed exam reviews. So if we could bring everyone in a session, provide everyone with the password, have that password expire to provide students with the opportunity to review their exams. And then we're going to continue gathering student and faculty feedback for a continuous quality improvement process as it relates to our curriculum. So this is the VCU School of Pharmacy's take on ExamSoft, the good, the bad, and the awesome. And as you can see, the bad wasn't all that bad. It's not use ExamSoft.
Which I'm taking to mean, like, why did you start doing this study? Was it just for internal improvement processes, or was it so you could share it later?
Do you mean why am I collecting data?
Yes.
In my background, given that my background is education, I truly believe that any time you implement some sort of a change, you want to sort of get a baseline and, you know, have the intervention, and then you want to assess the effectiveness of that intervention. So at this point, I don't have any plans of publishing, but it's just for my benefit, the outcomes and assessment and the curriculum committee's benefit.
Very cool. Okay, so the second question, which I know we talked about before the webinar, was, are you only using ExamSoft in the P3 year, or have you now incorporated it all across the class years?
Now, that's still a challenge for us because we have one classroom in our school, which has 143 seats. We admit 140 students every year, and so right now it's just very tight to get P1 students and P2 students. But what we're hoping to do in the fall is to move to an afternoon exam block, and we'll have a morning exam block. So it's possible that our P1 exams will be on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday afternoon, always. And we can use that room during that time for P1 students, and then we could use the morning block for P3 students. And then hopefully the next year we will have exam block or an exam block for P2 students.
Very cool. Okay, the third question is, can you talk a little bit more about your exam policy regarding security, student attendance, all sorts of things, just like your overall exam policy? What does it really look like?
I'm glad you mentioned that. They are just finalizing the exam policy. It's gone through several reviews, but basically it covers everything, and we had a conversation about this today, even down to the calculators. Where students are supposed to store their materials. Again, our classroom's very small. We do have lockers for students, but the students say the lockers are too small. It also covers some professionalism issues. And let's see, there is another issue. And I do know that it's like 2 or 3 pages long at this point, and the professionalism committee is looking to scale that back. We haven't been able to land on the issue of whether or not it's appropriate to prevent students from going to the restroom, and we hate to be micromanaging exams to that degree. But that is a valid concern that's come up with some faculty. You know, if a student has to go to the restroom, should I allow him or her to go to the restroom doing a 50-minute exam? And so those are some issues that the professionalism committee is working on as well.
Awesome. Next question. Sorry, I just had it and it just went way off my screen, and so now I'm looking at it again. How do you make sure that all the students are taking the exam in the actual classroom?
So you remember that slide I shared with you after the statement that's included in the course syllabi? We have what we call ExamSoft notes pages. So they are, every single exam, a different color paper is used, and students are required to turn in that piece of paper to an exam proctor. So with any exam, we could have anywhere from 3 to 4 proctors during an exam session. So one of the proctors is checking the student's name off as that paper is turned in. That way we make sure that those students who are in the classroom have completed the exam in the classroom and not over at the library or at home. So if we don't have a sheet, that is a problem for us. And I will say, since we've implemented ExamSoft in 2013, we've never ever had an issue with a student being somewhere else completing an exam, because we have those ExamSoft notes pages. Another benefit of the notes pages is that students still you would imagine that students today prefer everything electronic, but one of the things that the students said to us is when they're taking a test, they still like to have paper because they write notes on paper when they're taking a test. So it also serves as a scratch piece of paper for students. It also allows faculty and the TAs to check who was present for the exam. And so that's been very helpful. And in the instance we have an exam question with a very, very long case, we will attach the case to it as well.
Very cool. Can I ask just briefly, this is covered completely all about students and how they've reacted to it. What about faculty?
Great. It's funny that you should mention that, because that's what the last session was on a little bit. Our faculty report that they like ExamSoft. One of the things that they like about ExamSoft is the fact that it's easy for them to get the grades back to students. They really like those faculty who coordinated this past spring really like it, because over the Christmas break we installed the ExamSoft building block to Blackboard. So anytime we make any modifications or an adjustment to an exam, we push a button that says push this course to Blackboard, push the grades to Blackboard, and the grades are automatically uploaded. So with this particular group of students, P3, who are scattered among 3 different campuses, it's a huge benefit, because before we'd have to wait a couple of days for the exam reports or the exams to come from the Inova campus and the UVA campus, send them over to the Grade Center, wait a couple of days, and then have the TAs do the scoring and inputting into Blackboard, whereas now it can be done in a matter of minutes. The one thing that faculty struggle with is the amount of time it took them to import questions into ExamSoft. You might say, well, it's a very, very easy and intuitive system. It is a very easy and intuitive system, but for someone who, in our particular program, someone who may be coordinating a course for 4 weeks out of a year and not having to go back to that course until the next year, the learning curve can be pretty steep, and then it's the retention of how do I lock down items in ExamSoft, how do I do this? So that's part of the issue as it relates to some of the challenges faculty had with ExamSoft. Their recommendation when I asked fall 2014 faculty who use Blackboard to use ExamSoft to provide some feedback, one of the recommendations was I'd be happy to continue using it if we were going to have dedicated support. So given requirements of our accreditation process, we are going to be hiring a full-time person to help with the accreditation data that we need to collect, as well as helping import some of the exams or exam items or build the item bank. So, for example, over the summer, we're going to have ExamSoft sessions where faculty who have taught this past year, they can go in and categorize some of their items. I will help them with this. This new person will be able to help them with this, so that next year, when it's time for them to create exam items, we can just pull them out, create the item, create the exam, and it's not difficult. It's not that very difficult to do at all. But we're hoping to use the summer months to help faculty categorize items so that during the academic year they are not spending a lot of time getting those items imported into Blackboard. In that particular instance, the new person that we're hiring, or I, will handle the importing of items for them. And because we are consistent, we're the consistent presence through all of the courses, it takes me hardly any time to get an exam imported into ExamSoft and formatted, and all of the supporting documentation out to the faculty at the remote campuses. Sounds like a lot, but it's really not a lot.
Perfect. Next question. Do you set deadlines for upload and download?
Yes, we do. We had to do that because the first year we used ExamSoft, we would have the same 5 students who come into every single exam having not downloaded the exam file. So what we do with download is we say that you have to have the file downloaded 2 hours before the exam. Some other schools say the day before the exam, because they want to be able to identify any technical issues. But we haven't had a problem over the last year with students downloading the files before the exam session starts. I check the ExamSoft before every single exam session, at least an hour, and all students have downloaded the file. And again, I think that's related to setting clear expectations and holding students accountable. So that's one of the things we tell them at the beginning of the semester. And I think the other thing that helped with that is last spring, when we had the same 5 people coming to the exams not having downloaded the file, we said we would assess them a 2-point penalty. And you might think 2 points is not a lot. You know, some other schools may have more stringent penalties, but sometimes a 2-point penalty can make or break a student. So students do pay attention to those 2 points, and they download their file before exam sessions. I have not had to enforce any of the upload, because we want students to upload the exam files before they leave the classroom. So they show us their yellow screen or their green screen, and we tell them, you need to see that on green screen. And so students just typically wait in the classroom, and the file's uploaded, no problem at all. So I think once this year, I may have had to send an email message to a student saying, we haven't gotten your exam file yet. But that's not, the uploading of exam files has not been an issue at all.
That's very good to hear. And perfect timing also. It is just now 4 o'clock Eastern, and so we've gone exactly an hour here, so I think that it's time for us to sign off. To all the attendees out there who had other questions, just know that we will be getting back to you on those. They won't go ignored. And thank you so much, Veronica.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to share this information with you all.
Hope everybody has really good days. I'm signing off now.